Locked On Vikings, Locked On Cardinals. It's crossover Thursday here on the Locked On Vikings podcast.
Ooh-wee! You are Locked On Vikings, your daily Minnesota Vikings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Crossover Thursday, everybody. I am Luke Braun of the Locked On Vikings podcast for Cardinals fans and for my Vikings fans, here with Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals, talking Vikings, Cardinals. Very weird game probably coming up between a couple of teams who are used to being called fakers. This Crossover Thursday is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is daily fantasy made easy. Just pick 2 to 5 of your favorite players and whether or not they will do better or worse than their Prize Picks projection. If you're right, you can win up to 10 times your money. And if you go to prizepicks.com or download the app, you can use promo code LOCKEDON on sign up to get a 100% deposit match up to $100. That is prizepicks.com or download the Prize Picks app. Alex, tell me what I need to know about the Arizona Cardinals. Will Kyler Murray show up to this game, or will he be too busy playing the new Call of Duty?
I mean, I'm really happy that they won on Thursday against New Orleans when Modern Warfare 2 or whatever it is came out. Because if they would have lost by 40, it would have been this storyline that would never end. At least it's been subsided for now, I think.
But now it's the new multiplayer. So the game came out and everybody could play the campaign. Nobody cares about the campaign. Now it's the multiplayer. This is what gets people stuck. So this is really the week where we got to worry about that homework clause.
Got it. I just passed out. I just fell asleep when you were telling me that because I was so bored. So I don't know, I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I get it. Multiplayer, I get it. No, so here's the thing. The thing about the Cardinals, and I know it's a great joke, and that's one of those weird stats where it's like it can't be coincidental or circumstantial.
Random coincidence. There's no way an NFL player is getting wrapped. I don't know. Well, I mean, it happened to Paxton Lynch, so.
Yeah, and Paxton Lynch is making about as much money as I am right now, wherever he is. The interesting part about the Cardinals moving on, and as we talk about this matchup, we're going to get into the key matchups that the big storylines and everything. But do you think, before we jump in, do you see a direct correlative storyline wise from the Cardinals starting 7-0 last year to the Vikings starting 5-1 this year, where it's like the Vikings, it didn't come out of nowhere like it seemingly did with the Cardinals, where everything happened in a vacuum for them? But is the fraudulency or potential of it in Minnesota palpable among the fan base?
Yes. So the wins are super fake feeling. You get you could discredit every one of them if you really tried. You could, they beat Aaron Rodgers week 1, but week 1 Aaron Rodgers has been weird for a while. It's a fluke, whatever. Like they needed a double doink against the stupid Saints that you guys just put up 42 on. They gave up an 18-point lead against Chicago and Justin Fields 4 days before they had that Thursday night game against the Commanders that proved that they were very bad. They barely beat the Lions. This last game against Miami, it was 2 backup quarterbacks. You could go through each and every one. And we've had those conversations on Locked On Vikings a lot about is it real? What is real? Does it matter if it's real? Where we're at right now, my opinion of the Vikings is that they're probably closer to a slightly above average team. Call it a 6-5 finish the rest of the way. Well, that would be 11-5, or 11-6 and probably an NFC North title. So does it matter anymore? They're 5-1, and there's a positioning thing to even with the Cardinals, they kind of totally collapsed, still made the playoffs. And it's a matter of will they be a paper tiger in the playoffs. But I think the key difference to me is, and I believed so hard in those Cardinals. I think I talked to you about it last year.
Oh, yeah.
They were one of my favorite teams to watch. And I think the key is that these Vikings are learning new stuff. And the biggest problem right now is guys having a new job than what they've had for the last 8 years under Mike Zimmer and not being used to it. The progressions are a little different, and Kirk Cousins is still learning that stuff. The Eric Kendricks is doing more spot drop zone than he's ever done in his career, and he's struggling with some of those things. Danielle Hunter is rushing from a 2-point stance. He's backing off into coverage. He's reading plays differently. Everything's a little bit slower. And what I've noticed, and this is super subjective, but what I've noticed is every game, that stuff has gotten a little bit cleaner. And so the hope is they can kind of come out of the bye with a little bit of a self-scout and get those things together and hopefully get better as the year wears on and not worse. That's the difference. But in terms of the first few games, yeah, don't start putting your money on Vikings Super Bowl futures just because they started 5-1. They're closer to the way we look at like the Giants 5-1 right now than like the Bills 5-1.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I think with the Cardinals, it's more the way I've talked about it on Locked On Cardinals is the only thing that's worse than having a problem is not knowing why there's a problem. And I feel like offensively, we are witnessing we don't know what the hell's going on and why there's a problem.
Really? That's what I was going to ask you. Is like, what's wrong?
Well, because we don't know. Like, so confirmation bias is abound in Arizona. If you believed in Cliff and Keim this offseason and everything, well, it's Kyler's fault. If you are a Kyler Murray guy like I am, it's this offseason's been like, pay the dude, shut up, and let's play football. And now those two, like, it's like with the Pacific and Atlantic Ocean meet, it's like, what is going on here? And is it Kyler not emerging as a guy you thought would be an elite quarterback? Or is Cliff Kingsbury not building an ecosystem like he's supposed to in massaging and grooming a young quarterback into being great? And when I see Brian Daboll over in New York, it's like it took a head coaching change to turn Daniel Jones into a 6-1 quarterback. And that's not all him. It's the defense. It's Saquon Barkley. It's lucky bounces. But I feel like Kyler Murray is doing it more on his own than other elite quarterbacks or potentially soon to be elite quarterbacks. And I think that's the oil and water that we're seeing. And the defense has kept this team afloat. Even though you look at the points against, it's brutal. They gave up 78 points, I think, in week 1 and week 6, or week 1 and week 7 combined. But between that, they have 44 burger to Kansas City week 1. So, like, you throw that week 1 away,
okay. It's the Chiefs.
They've given up 23 points or less in week 2 through week 6, and they're looked at as the strength and stability of this team when that's not what they're built to be. They're not built to win games. They're built to set the table for the offense to eat.
Sure. Do you think DeAndre Hopkins fixes like some portion? Like, what portion of this does it fix to have like your number one dude back?
It did it for a week. And then now it's can Cliff Kingsbury build a game plan where everybody on the planet knows there's going to be double, there's going to be spy, there's going to be triple. They're going to bracket DeAndre Hopkins and take him out of the game, you would think, and make Cliff Kingsbury build a game plan around that. And we'll see what happens.
Maybe we have a matchup here then, because the Vikings building game plans against mobile quarterbacks has been something of a thing. And just the defensive coaching in general and the scheme. You would think they would do some of the obvious stuff, but they are very much, we'll talk about it in a sec. They're very much in this is the game that we play, and we're just going to try to execute it as well as possible, and whatever you do against it, whatever. It has not been as adaptable as I think it can be in the future, but again, guys are screwing up too much, so they have a pretty limited hand of cards to play. No pun intended. Alex, I'm looking for some sweatpants. Do you know where I can find them?
So we were lucky enough here at the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day, to get Bird Dog's attire. I got the sweatpants and I got the shorts, both of which have liners in them. It's starting to get cooler here in Arizona and then across the country, obviously a little bit even more cool. Here's the thing, okay? I'm not a sweatpants guy. I never have been. I wear shorts. I wear jeans. I put these babies on. I've washed them, but I haven't taken them off. Okay. They're higher quality than Lululemon and $20 less.
You just shower with them and like give them a little scrub and,
you wear a huge trash bag so I can keep them on. They're perfect for fall golf. You may not play like Tiger Woods. Okay. But you'll feel just as good. The deal is, comfort is a thing. And there's that weird temperature wise where 65 degrees, 60 degrees, where you don't want to wear jeans, you don't want to wear shorts, you need something in the middle. Bird Dog's got them. And if it's still a little bit warm where you live, or you like to frolic around your place in shorts, they've got those too. They've got everything you need to cover your body, and the comfortable liner, everything. Okay? Go to birddogs.com, enter promo code Locked On, and they'll throw in a free Bird Dogs rope hat. It's a pretty sweet hat. That's birddogs.com, promo code Locked On, and boom, a free Bird Dogs rope hat with your pair of Bird Dogs. The most comfortable shorts, pants, and sweatpants with built-in liners. You will not take these things off. I promise. And I do love them, but not to the point of wanting to propose or buy a ring for them. If I were to, our next sponsor, Blue Nile, would have me covered. Whether you're looking to pop the question, I thought you'd like that. Yeah, really, it's just pro. Whether you're looking to pop the question, have a milestone to celebrate, or want to let your love sparkle, Blue Nile can help you make your celebrations even more memorable. They're the largest selection online, independently graded diamonds and pieces priced significantly below traditional retailers. They've helped millions of couples create their perfect engagement ring. And the biggest thing here, I don't know anything about jewelry or rings or anything. They've got 24/7 support available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. Like, they walk you through. That's the coolest thing about this company, besides the actual jewels themselves. Shop stress-free with Blue Nile's 100% satisfaction guarantee. All Blue Nile orders are insured and shipped for free in discreet packaging. Make your moment sparkle with Blue Nile. Go to BlueNile.com and use code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. That's BLUENILE.com, code LOCKEDON to save $50 on your purchase of $500 or more. BlueNile.com, code LOCKEDON.
So it is October, and that makes it a golden age for men's sports. NBA, NFL, MLB, World Series, NHL, all in season or in postseason. Great time. And to keep up on all of that, make sure you check out the Locked On Sports Today podcast with our good pal and colleague, Peter Bukowski, breaking down everything from the national stage on all sports. So let's talk a little bit about matchups here. Crossover Thursday. I am Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, here with Alex Clancy of Locked On Cardinals. Let's follow up on kind of what I teased there. The Vikings have basically played a too high, you may have heard it called like shell coverage, which is not a very good word. I don't like that word, but umbrella, whatever you want to say. They have sort of lived in this too high safety, very soft, a lot of zone, a lot of very conservative, keep it in front of you, make the tackle kind of stuff. They've struggled a lot with containing quarterbacks. It feels like, and I've been saying this on every one of these crossovers, do you need a get-right game? Because this is your get-right game. The Vikings defense has been really messy, and they've given up. They let Teddy Bridgewater throw for 350 in 3 quarters last week, or before the bye. So if you need a get-right game. But it sounds like the Cardinals have had just as much trouble taking advantage of defensive mistakes as the Vikings have had preventing those defensive mistakes. So this side of the ball feels like whoever can pull their poop in a group can win the game. You like that?
Oh, God, I'm going to use that. That is the PG version of one of my favorite things to say. That's so good. Yeah, it's interesting, Luke, because the Cardinals' offense now is going to look different than it did through the first 6 weeks, having DeAndre Hopkins back, Robbie Anderson. I talked about this before the Thursday night game. You could potentially have a net positive offensively for the Cardinals in the skill position group, losing Hollywood Brown and adding DeAndre Hopkins and Robbie Anderson. Even though Hollywood Brown has been a bona fide wide receiver 1 through the first 6 weeks, Robbie Anderson, Rondale Moore, and DeAndre Hopkins both have very different and weird skill sets when you piece them together. And
yeah, you got a speedster, you've got an underneath kind of shifty dude, and then you've got DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, who's just so, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see what the game plan is going to look like defensively. And listen, if there's ever a get-right game that Kyler Murray needs, he needs to throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. Like, he hasn't looked good this year, by all accounts, even though he put on his cape and saved the Cardinals' keisters in Vegas with this miraculous comeback in week 2. But he hasn't looked good. So, yes, the Cardinals absolutely need a get-right game. And it seems like that's what they could potentially have. At least a play will be set for that. Now, for me, it's Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. But the main thing is, if Kirk Cousins can have his tea parties in the backfield, that's what I call it. Like, if the Cardinals can't put any pressure on him, Kirk Cousins will pick. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's not as much as of late. Not as much as of late. But I do remember last year, Kirk Cousins had 3 touchdown passes in the first quarter, or in the first quarter and a half in Arizona.
Something like that. There was a bust in there, like a really bad coverage bust in there. There was some weird stuff.
That's right.
That was a weird game.
Yeah, I think it was the second play of the game that Byron Murphy fell down or something, and that's right. If Kirk Cousins, say what you wish, and I know you say a lot, I'm sure, about him, but Like NFL quarterbacks, when they have time in the pocket, the majority of the time they're going to make the right throw. You'd think law of averages, and you have arguably the best young receiver in the NFL. Adam Thielen's still one of the better possession receivers in the NFL, and still one of the best red zone targets we've seen in the last 20 years from what we've seen over the last couple of years for him. And Dalvin Cook. Like, it's nightmare fuel for me if the Cardinals can't get to Kirk Cousins. That's the big matchup that I'm looking for, and I'm hoping they can.
I think I'm going to, if that's the case, I think that helps me make the decision. I'm going to pick the Vikings to cover here because the O-line has been one of the pleasant surprises of the year. Mm-hmm. We have a breakout left tackle in Christian Darrisaw, truly breaking out. He is putting people in the ground. He's been phenomenal. The interior has been a lot more sound. I would still say the interior offensive line is like of anything on the offense is probably the weakest spot, but it's not what it's been in previous years where those guys would hold the team hostage. It's like, yeah, you could probably get a pressure or two up the middle, but nothing more than anybody else is suffering. They're probably a below average interior offensive line. They've been able to keep Cousins a little cleaner this year. They've struggled with their blitz pickups, which I think is a different issue than what you're getting at. They've struggled getting to hot reads. Sometimes they don't even have a hot route. Like that's been a bigger struggle on offense. But I will say this season, I think you can see the effect that O'Connell has had on Kirk Cousins. He's playing a lot looser, for better or worse. Sometimes he's thrown some boneheaded interceptions, but he's a little more willing to take a throw that isn't picture perfect. He's a little more willing to go, okay, that's a little bit of a messy look, but I think I can swing it. And that has gotten him into some trouble, but we kind of will take that because it's also led to some pretty cool throws. And he's had time back there on straight dropbacks and stuff. They also use a lot of play action, which can sort of neutralize a play pass rush. But mainly it's the two tackles have played very well. So if you're going to get pressure, you're getting it up the middle or you're not getting it at all. And the way you make it sound, if the Cardinals aren't capable of doing that, then yeah, I think this could be a cleaner day for Cousins back there.
Yeah, see, there's a couple things that are kind of in flux. They're kind of fluid. The fact is, like, the blitz packages have gotten better. Like, third-round pick Cameron Thomas has had a couple sacks over the last couple weeks. Zayvon Collins has gotten in the backfield on blitz packages. The interior of the offensive line is going to be looking at Zach Allen. And Zach Allen's a guy that's really emerged in his, fourth year, I think. He hasn't been healthy. He's been under the wing of J.J. Watt. Like, when I've been equating it like this. A 15-year-old being taught by a 25-year-old how to drive right when they get their driver's license doesn't translate or doesn't resonate as much as an 18-year-old learning how to really drive from a 25-year-old. And Zach Allen's been in the league long enough to where he's not just looking starry-eyed at J.J. Watt like, I'll listen to anything you say. I'll carry your golf clubs I'll learn about the method
base of knowledge.
Great. Right. But now it's like really real-life application of what made J.J. Watt great. Zach Allen's learning, but through osmosis and through being around him all the time. And it's really something. It's really been nice to see him. He's going to earn a second contract with the Cardinals. So he's going to be the terror in the interior, and we'll see what holds up there. Now, the only thing, and I do want to ask you this before we get to our predictions in the next segment, like what I'm seeing from over here, hundreds and hundreds of miles away, is a run-first offense learning how to be a pseudo-pass-first offense. Like, wasn't it always Dalvin Cook? Yeah. Wasn't it always, whoever who was their fullback that was the backup running back that was great?
CJ Ham, baby, still there.
Yeah. Well, but there was another running back there. I cannot remember before Alexander Madison.
Madison.
Yeah, but it was a couple
Madison, years. Like Latavius Murray.
Yeah, maybe.
Jerick McKinnon was there.
Yeah, but it was very run centric, and then you had Adam Thielen, you had some wide receiver pieces. But is it turning into more pass first, loosey goosey Kirk Cousins offense? I mean, Dalvin Cook's numbers aren't what they were last year for sure.
It feels like it, and they definitely have prioritized the run game less. Like, there's not a lot of schematic effort going into making the run game a genuine like weapon, but it's still very much part of things. Like, they haven't just become like the Bills just saying, screw the run game, we're just going to throw it 80% of the time.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people expected that with O'Connell, but they lead the league in play action. And so the run game is like part of it. It's a slightly different version of the run game. It's a little bit less like get out to the boundary every single play. There's more mid zone. There's more duo. It's a little more physical looking, but I do think that they are a wide zone team running a mid zone scheme, and that has created. I mean, they've struggled to get pushed sometimes. The reads are a little bit different, and everything is just like a little slower because everybody's learning something new. Whatever position they play, everybody's got something new to get. But I would say they are a Justin Jefferson team. Everything is built to open up Justin Jefferson. Like, everything funnels to him. The run game is meant to get play action to him, and it's meant to get a safety in the box so he can get a one-on-one. Everybody else's route, like Jefferson's the first read on like every play. And everybody else's route is either clearing things out for Jefferson or becoming a punish for if you bracket Jefferson, and you're going to have something else. You're going to have a one-on-one somewhere else. So the way the Vikings offense has operated this year, if you have the corners, and this is my question to you, if you have the cornerbacks to double Justin Jefferson, so you'll need to have a safety on top of him and then somebody playing like trail underneath him. You have to. Marshawn Lattimore couldn't handle him one-on-one. And that's Lattimore. That's like a premier corner.
Yeah.
And then you need somebody who can one-on-one with Adam Thielen without getting 10 million holding penalties like the Lions did. And you need to have a third guy that can one-on-one with KJ Osborne, who's no slouch himself. If you can do that, the Vikings offense has a lot of trouble. But there's only been a couple teams who can do that.
Yeah.
The Eagles had a great game.
How many teams can do that? Yeah.
The Eagles did it. And the Lions did it, but at the cost of getting way too many flags and kind of sunk their game because of it. But that was it.
Yeah, I mean, Byron Murphy's really emerged. There were a lot of ifs on the defensive side of the ball going into the season because they didn't do a whole lot this offseason to replace Chandler Jones, to replace a leadership role like Jordan Hicks, who's now with the Minnesota Vikings. Byron Murphy has emerged as a CB1, or as close to what we've seen as a CB1 the Cardinals have had since Patrick Peterson came into the league 12 or 14 years ago. It's been a long time. And
he's cooking a little bit, by the way.
Huh?
He's cooking a little bit, by the way. I mean, he's old. He's giving everybody a lot of cushion. Yeah, he's giving everybody a lot of cushion. He's not the speedy guy. He'll get run by a couple times, but he's made a couple of great plays, had a super heady interception in week 6 against Miami.
Yeah, and he actually, I think he had some really good defensive plays against the Cardinals last year when they came to Phoenix. But
sort of.
It's a work in progress.
Touchdown to Hopkins.
It's a work in progress. Marco Wilson, he was NFC Player of the Week, which was interesting. He had the pick 6 and the into the end zone. If you don't say that every time you see that picture, I mean, that's your inner child's dead, which we never want to happen. Yeah.
So good.
So Marco Wilson, Antonio Hamilton's there. Like, the cornerback room is the weakest group of this team. At least it was on paper going into the season. But Byron Murphy's really emerged as a guy that you can trust the majority of the time. He started this way last year, fell off. We'll see if he can hold Justin Jefferson to under 8 for 140 and 2 touchdowns. That's really the goal, isn't it?
Yeah, pretty much. I think 2 teams have gotten Justin Jefferson under 100. If I'm doing that off the dome, I might be wrong, but just the Eagles and Lions have kept Justin Jefferson under 100 yards. He's gotten 100-yard games in the other 4 of 6. It's been pretty crazy unless you sell all the way out to stop him. And if you sell all the way out to stop him, you can still lose the game. So I'm looking at the over-under right now at BetOnline, and we'll talk about that in a sec, and we'll do our predictions coming right up.
Simply Safe. Here's a sports analogy for you. I like to mix it up. Simply Safe is an entity in and of itself. These guys are titans in their business, okay? When it comes to burglars, your home is like the end zone, okay? And you need the absolute strongest defense you can muster. This is why I use and trust Simply Safe Home Security. At Simply Safe, your safety is the only thing that matters. It's cutting-edge technology powered by 24/7 professional monitoring agents who always have your back, so you always know your home is safe. Okay, with 24/7 professional monitoring, as I mentioned, Simply Safe's agents call you the moment a threat is detected and dispatch police or first responders in an emergency, even if you're not at home or can't be reached. Simply Safe blankets your home in protection with advanced sensors for every room, window, and door, HD security cameras for inside and outside your home, smarter ways to detect motion that only alert you when a threat is real, not when it's your cat or bunny rabbit if you're Luke Braun jumping around, and even hazardous sensors that instantly detect fires, floods, and other threats to your home. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. Save 20% on your Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. Visit simplysave.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Save.
All right, Alex. Vikings favored by 3.5 at home. Over under right now, as of this recording, and I believe it's been fluctuating at BetOnline, is at 49. What do you got?
I don't know. I mean, like, so like when you said, like, there's so many, this is such a litmus test game for so many different reasons for each team. Like, the Cardinals moved to 4-4, their season is kind of saved. If they go to 3-5, it could be a fire sale at who knows before the trade deadline. We'll see if Minnesota is legitimate. They beat a team. I mean, the Cardinals aren't world beaters this year, but the hook is what gets me. Like, if it were 2.5, I'd take Minnesota without thinking about it. 3.5 makes me think I'm going to give the points. I'll lay the points and I'll say Minnesota's going to win by at least 4, just because I haven't seen it from the Cardinals in a team that wasn't completely decimated by injury. I just haven't seen it. Mm-hmm. And the over-under, like, the more
it's high,
points
but
scored,
I don't think it's high enough.
Yeah, I mean, but the more points scored, I feel like a shootout benefits the Cardinals. Minnesota, we've seen it, can win very ugly, and I don't think the Cardinals are built to win ugly. So I'm going to take the under, because if it's the over, I think the Cardinals have a much better chance of winning. So to make my first point more stable, I'm taking minus 3.5 and taking the under of 49. What about you, Luke Braun?
So that line implies a 26-23 about Vikings victory, right? That would just about satisfy it. I am taking an over on that, and I'm also taking the Vikings minus 3.5. Here's how I see this one going. The Vikings have struggled a lot with containing mobile quarterbacks. Justin Fields ran for a ton on them. Skylar Thompson ran all around him. Teddy Bridgewater isn't even mobile. He ran all around him. They have struggled a lot with that contain and their pass rushes. Their pass rushes are probably the furthest thing from a completed, like from its final form. Their 4-man rushes and their blitzes and stuff are just such a work in progress that I think, like, take what, I don't care what Kyler Murray's rushing over is, take it. He's gonna get 90. Like, it's insane. And I think that's going to be what this game comes down to, is if the Vikings can pull that problem together, I think they can keep up with the rest. DeAndre Hopkins will get his, you'll get your production, and they're going to give up points. They give up points to everybody. But I think they'll be able to keep up at least. And that's why I feel pretty good about the Vikings in this one, because of the stuff that you said. If they don't have like a really dynamic interior pass rush, I mean, look, Aaron Donalds and Fletcher Coxes are going to have a game, but if you don't have that, it gets a lot harder to get pressure on Cousins. And if you don't have pressure on Cousins and you can just sit back there you'll lose to everybody. Right. And especially if the other weakness of your team is cornerback, that just isn't the recipe. Like, that's just the recipe. You need a different recipe for these Vikings. It's just a different way that everybody has shown to beat them, unless you can find a brand new way to beat the Vikings, which, sure, it's week 7, right? That's not completely outside the realm of possibility at all.
Yeah.
But I feel pretty good about the Vikings in this one. I don't feel so confident. I'm not guaranteeing or anything, but I feel pretty confident in covering the 3.5. I feel the most confident, though, in a Kyler Murray rushing over. He is going to convert a stupid 3rd and 19 on the ground with his legs. I'd bet your mortgage on that. It's just what happens to the Vikings. But I want one more prediction from you before we wrap this up. I'm sure your listeners have heard this way too many times, but mine haven't. Does Cliff Kingsbury make it to the season's end as head coach of the Arizona Cardinals?
We're having a good time here. We're talking 20.5 minutes, and you got to bring this mess up. You and I, Luke, we get to talk once or twice a year, you bastard.
Does he make it? Or is it Black Monday, or is he fired at Thanksgiving?
No. Like, here's the thing, this is what I've said and I'll continue to say. It doesn't have anything to do with the money that he's owed or their win-loss record. Now. It's the ego of the owner, Michael Bidwell. He will not admit that he's wrong and pull the Band-Aid off and pull the ripcord before that contract extension even comes into play, which starts at the beginning of next year. So I still hold true what I tweeted out, and I will leave this for you Vikings fans, what I think over here. What I tweeted out when I found out that Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim got extended this offseason, I tweeted out Kyler Murray should request a trade today. And I still hold true that Cliff Kingsbury is holding Kyler Murray back. Will he get fired before the end of the season? No. Should he? If they lose the next 2 games, he should have got fired in 2019 before he got hired. So yes. Should he? Yes. Will he? No.
2025 starting Viking quarterback Kyler Murray. You heard it here first from Alex Clancy at Locked On Cardinals. I'm Luke Braun of Locked On Vikings, and we do this every Thursday for every game, so make sure you tune in to your favorite Locked On show on Thursdays before the game, and we'll see y'all next time. Thank y'all so much for hanging out for this edition of the Locked On Vikings podcast crossover. We'll talk just you and I a little bit tomorrow about it. We'll also do You Betcha. We'll do bold predictions, all of the normal stuff. The Vikings are back playing games again, and we're right back in the swing of things. So we'll talk about it then. See y'all tomorrow. And as always, Skull.